Welcome, everybody, to the Wake Up Call channel. Everybody is becoming more aware of how they are trying to implement smart cities, but they're not paying attention to these things that are going up around our highways on a daily basis, these 5G towers, and now these other tracking and monitoring towers that have been going up. You've probably seen them on highways that you've been on and not known what they are. You just drive past, you're like, what is that? Right? Because we're becoming so desensitized to these towers popping up that no one's even noticing that they keep adding more and more and more. They're adding them to water towers. They're adding them to pretty much everything they possibly can. We see them in trees hidden. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I want to thank a subscriber on the website, Mailman777, for putting this up over on the website. I wouldn't have seen it if it wasn't shared over there. And I thank everybody who is over on the website for all the stuff that you guys share. I appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. And this is about Michigan and how they're building the nation's first smart highway. This, folks, is utter hell. This is what I've been talking about with how they've been conditioning people into thinking that this type of technology is a good thing because you'll be able to track and monitor. And, you always should be worrying about mass murders occurring and those types of things so that we can watch true crime videos and have them solved because of the CCTV cameras. They've been conditioning people with that for the last decade or so in America specifically, with how wonderful it is to have this type of technology so that criminals can't run free. And imagine if they were still out there, how dangerous it would be to you. Instead of telling you about why there's so many people who are unhinged with these types of psychological issues, or a lot of them who are Manchurian candidates, but a lot of the serial killers are people who commit these crimes. You look at them and you go, how did this guy even know to dismember? Well, he's hearing about it over and over and over again with all these true crime shows. So now a guy kills his wife and he, in a passionate argument, and he's using a chainsaw on her like Leatherface. And you go, how in the world would a regular guy know how to do that or even think to do that? Well, they're being programmed. They don't even realize it. But this whole thing with smart cities and smart highways was supposed to be for your benefit, right? To help you out. Well, take a look at Michigan and this system of control and how they're going to monitor your every movement. And it's not about, well, they're going to monitor you in case you try to run through a toll or all this other stuff. They literally talk to you in this clip about how you can communicate with other cars and they can communicate with you. Welcome to hell, folks. This is what it looks like.
Hi, Natalie, Brian. Imagine if I could tell you on your commute, maybe from Naperville into, say, Gold Coast, it's a long drive. You could be hands-free. You could read the paper. You could do a crossword puzzle. Hey, you could even watch Fox 32 Chicago. Well, one company says it's not enough to have smart cars anymore. We need smart roads. Take a listen.
Congestion, traffic, delays. Could all three soon be a thing of the past?
What are you talking about? That sounds way too much like the Jetsons.
That's what Tyler Duvall would have told you 20 years ago when he was a transportation official. But now he says autonomous vehicles could make driving headaches disappear.
They're going to be making these vehicles within the next 10 years. You're probably going to have about, say, 20 to 25% of the vehicles sold will have this capability.
Duvall is now the CEO of Cavenue, a company piloting the world's first smart highway here in Michigan. The project, paid for by Cavenue, stretches 3 miles along a portion of I-94 connecting Detroit to Ann Arbor, Michigan, using poles in the median outfitted with cameras, radar sensors, and wireless radio equipment. Eventually, the company will be able to communicate with every car along the entire corridor.
The roadway will be talking to the cars. Cars will be talking to each other. We can use technology to start allowing these vehicles to operate more efficiently.
Cavenue's towers essentially act like a router, connecting to each car and creating a network of information. What one car sees can be instantly communicated to cars behind them. By giving vehicles a better sense of what lies ahead, all drivers are safer.
The analogy I've used is aviation. We can tell when there are hazards in the airspace that other planes need to adapt to.
And this is all really neat, right? But it's also about our friends and family safety. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration says the U.S. spends about $300 billion reacting to traffic fatalities. So this company, Cavenue, says, why not be proactive, save lives, put that money into better infrastructure? Natalie, Brian?
I find it so interesting, Kelly, that we're talking about Michigan again for a special project like this, because it wasn't too long ago, and you might remember this, Kelly, as well. They were talking about creating a charged roadway so that people that have those electric cars, it could be charged as they were driving on the road.
Right, that's exactly right. And what they want to do is essentially make this a possibility for every kind of car. So this doesn't have to be an EV. It just has to have all the sensors that most modern cars already have in order to make us all have a safer driving experience.
So that's what total enslavement looks like. But of course, when you put fancy technology out there and you talk about the benefits, how it's for safety, the suckers out there all go along with it. Remember, these are people who are afraid to walk on the pavement because they might burn their feet and they need the government to tell them not to walk on the pavement when it's 100 degrees out. These are the same people who need the government to tell them to put a diaper on their face because if somebody sneezes, they may die in 5 seconds. I mean, these are people who cannot think for themselves. So all they need to be told that it's for them, for their safety, for their benefit, and they fall for it. So Michigan is building the nation's first smart highway, 3 miles of I-94 will have special sensors and communication equipment to track cars and help drivers with special alerts. A 3-mile stretch of Interstate 94 in Michigan will be converted into the highway. Axios reports that the Alphabet-backed startup Cavnew, okay, Alphabet-backed, that means Google, has started constructing the, you know what I mean? That's Google's Alphabet Inc., for anyone that doesn't know, okay? So all these companies, again, it all goes back to Google. Google is a branch of the government. We know Google's responsible for censorship and monitoring and everything else that's going on. So Alphabet Inc. brings you this Google Highways, folks. They started constructing the Smart Highway as part of a new pilot project that could spur other construction projects across the country. Another project, a smart freight corridor on State Highway 130 in Austin, Texas, is also being developed. The new Smart Road, and that's another thing to keep in mind. Texas, that's a conservative place. There's going to be things that you have to look at, right, when they're dividing us in left and right, and they're using things like Roe v. Wade and free speech and guns, right, things that are big issues for people out there. Watch the ones that are neutral things they don't discuss. The climate, okay, and smart cities and technology. If conservatives were really awake and conservative leaders were, they would emphasize to the conservative people to get off of technology and get away from technology. Not for mental health purposes, for control purposes, because this whole control mechanism goes through technology. And if everybody broke free from technology, they break free from government control and tyranny. But they're not doing that. And of course, conservatives won't tell them that. So we see that now also being talked about in Austin, Texas. The new Smart Road is big, long tracking system for Michigan's Department of Transportation and for drivers on the highway. The Smart Highway is designed to inform both MDOT and drivers about potential issues ahead, such as obstacles in the road, accidents, or traffic jams. It's hoped that the project will help relieve. I mean, this is unbelievable, right? Most people actually can, do this already on their phone, right? On their phone, they look and they see if there's an accident, if there's a different route that they could take, which is already bad enough that we're allowing them to have the ability to show you this ahead of time, but people think it's for their benefit, right? Oh, you could avoid traffic? Okay, I'll download the app. I'll use this on my phone. Okay, I'll allow this in my life, in my car. Instead of realizing, you're in a rush to get where? To get nowhere, right? Instead of thinking about the people who could be involved in the accident, what? Everyone's just thinking about how they can get around the traffic. And this is part, what people should be thinking about is who is giving these corporations carte blanche, like Alphabet Inc., or should I say Cavnew, to put these things up on public highways. That's what we should be talking about, okay? Who's giving them the ability to do that? Well, obviously our government is, because our government is run by corporations. And that's the mindset people need to get in. People need to get in the mindset of who the true enemy is. We're talking Google. And yeah, I'm here on YouTube, but I'm here infiltrating the hive mind. That's what I'm here for, to infiltrate the hive mind. I'm not here to support it. I'm here to infiltrate it. We can look at Amazon, Bezos, Musk, right? Tesla, all these big brands, Walmart, they are responsible. BlackRock, they all control everything. And nobody goes, who's giving them? This is a taxpayer funded highway, right? A state highway. And we're giving Google the ability to do it. And people don't care. They just go, whatever. They're sticking up towers in the middle of the road. Doesn't affect me. Doesn't? Yeah. Okay. Well, it does actually in more ways than you could imagine. Because it's not just about monitoring and tracking you. It's also about the frequencies coming out of these things that they're putting up in the middle of the road when they talk about your mental health and tell you it's because of the climate. Yeah. Your forgetfulness, your exhaustion, your anxiety, your depression, it's because of these towers that they're putting up. They're emitting radiation right to your brain. And then you have your phone next to you at all times, which is also doing the same exact thing. And nobody's paying attention to it. It's frightening. So the pilot program of the highway is located between Ann Arbor and Detroit. There are future plans to extend the smart highway to 40 miles in 6 more phases that would connect to both cities once the pilot program is complete. The smart highway works with a series of poles placed every 200 meters, which is 655 feet, which I'm surprised isn't 666 feet. But, 55 feet is actually 660 inches. So believe it or not, right there in front of your faces, which I didn't know before I recorded this because I didn't get that far down in the article, 666. There you go, right? You get 655 feet. You get your 6, then you get your 660 inches. How do I know that off the top of my head? Well, I know that because the Washington Monument, that's how they deceive you with Bale's Shaft, the Washington Monument that we're all supposed to praise and bow down to and think it's there. It's just some random giant pointy thing that they put in Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah. And what are the dimensions of that? Oh, 555 feet, which converts to what? 6,660 inches by 55.5 feet wide, which converts to 666 inches. You can go look it up for yourself. In fact, they used to openly tell you the dimensions of the Washington Monument until some YouTuber sounded like me was getting hundreds of thousands of views talking about topics like that. And people started catching on. And they're like, whoa, that's scary. That's 666 right there. There's got to be something to it, right? They're so intricate with their architecture and the structure, and they didn't just randomly make it that size, right? But they didn't expect you to convert feet to inches, and then, of course, now they bury that info, but I've shown it over and over. I have screenshots of it if you can't find it. So they're talking about America now needs to catch up when it comes to building and implementing smart highways. Great Britain, for instance, started working on its first internet-connected highway in 2014. And remember, Trump is all for this. Trump's in a race to 6G. Don't forget that stuff. The conservatives, they look over stuff like that. They don't understand the technology aspect, and they don't want to because they love their tech. And the alt-right media is not pushing anything talking about the dangers of 5G, 6G, and what this is all about with nanotechnology. That's never discussed, right? Ever, 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 ever. That's only people like me and you, and that's why we're always removed, because we don't keep you in the left-right paradigm. They need to keep conservatives in on the tech, which Trump is doing with rushing to 6G, trying to get there before other countries, right? Rushing to 5G. These are things that Trump always said, and of course, Operation Warp Speed. Right? And conservatives conveniently overlook both of those things and don't say, hey, you know what? This guy was trying to poison us a couple years ago. You know what? This guy really wants these radiation towers all around our towns too. Right? They don't want you to think about that. They want you to just stay stuck, stay divided. And when there's overlapping things, you should always be looking at them. And then by overlapping, I mean if both sides are supporting it. And the Republicans aren't supporting the climate stuff openly, but they're not telling the people out there what the carbon footprint is. Right? So that's just compliance is what it is. They're not going over the top because they don't want to lose the grip they have over their audience. The same with the magic potion. They realized when they were pushing it on Fox News, when Trump was pushing it, they were starting to lose their stranglehold on everybody. The conservatives were starting to get mad about it. They didn't expect that. So they pulled back. Trump, even 2 years ago, was talking about how it was his greatest accomplishment. You don't hear him mention it now, right? All he mentions is, well, they pushed mandates. I didn't push them, and he pushed them too. He started the lockdowns, right? But conveniently, their audience forgets that because they're so stuck in the left-right hypnosis that they can't overlook these things and realize that they're all working together. And again, the same thing goes with the technology. So these are really just going to be radiation towers that are going to pop up. And we know that this is the plan. This is the plan for all of the United States of America. They're going to destroy infrastructure, smart city technology. Remember, I talked about this with the World Economic Forum. You always hear people talking about the World Economic Forum now, which is good to make people aware. But they're only doing that to gatekeep you. So they talk about it and they make memes about eating the bugs and they talk about Klaus Schwab and that's all fun and, whatever. But they don't talk about the main goal that the World Economic Forum says, which is smart city governance, smart city infrastructure, right? That's what they want. So if that's what they want, you have to look at it and say, well, how are they going to get it? You think they're going to get it by everyone's just going to go, okay, take down all these small businesses, bring in all these big tech bring in all these big towers, make it look like Westworld. No, they have to sabotage to bring it in. And they don't want you to realize that that's what this is about. Sabotage and then rolling in a new infrastructure, all with technology. And then, of course, they just ignore it. They're like, well, you love your phone, right? Yeah. Well, now you can have this faster and this will be more easy and more fun. Oh, right. It's amazing how many conservatives out there don't know the dangers of 5G, let alone 6G. They don't know what's coming with what I believe is the mark of the beast. And of course, they don't even realize what the experiment that was just done was for, right? The mixing of iron and clay and getting technology inside of your body. So anyway, back to the story here. Michigan is building the nation's first smart highway, the first of many, okay? And what it takes at first, they put the stories out, then they put propaganda out to tell you how their smart highway saved this person's life, how their smart highway did this to benefit people. And then people go, oh, that's great. And it's all propaganda. None of it's real. And then they just start doing it. Oh, did you hear that they have that there? Well, we have we have one of the worst highways here in Arizona or wherever they pick, right? And we have so many accidents in LA, etc. Well, let's bring it here. Oh, then they bring it there. Then people get desensitized to it, stop thinking about their privacy and their rights, and they just go, well, it's for safety. Okay, right? As time goes by, they become more acceptive. They might hear this story and say, whoa, I don't want the smart highway. Eventually, all these people who even think they're opposed to smart cities are going to be on board. Unless they break away from the technology, they're compliant, okay? And let's be honest, we're all just as guilty sitting here because we're all on technology. And in the future, we need to get, when they start implementing not smart IDs, but the digital ID, and they start implementing your, having to have it to buy and sell and all those other things, well, that's when I'm breaking completely off the grid and completely free of this stuff. But for the time being, I'm using the technology to infiltrate and try to help people wake up while I can, because we could obviously reach a mass amount of people this way compared to hitting the streets and going door to door. But in the future, that's probably what it's going to look like. People are going to have to be on, rooftops screaming this stuff because the censorship from the algorithm is going to be so heavy. But most people won't even realize it because they'll see stuff like this, they'll hear the propaganda, how it benefits people, and they'll just go, okay, let's get a smart highway in our state. And then it goes one domino, the next domino. Next thing you know, they're everywhere, just like the 5G towers, and we continue forward. It's literally a living hell. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you and your families, as always.